Welcome to Module 7, PCC 240M, and we are going to talk about our Chapter 10 in our book, Securing Windows Server 2016. So let's go ahead and get right into it. The objectives, going to understand how we use group policies, understand and configure security policies, look at some templates, and configure them for clients. We're also going to talk about encryption, different types of encryption, a little bit of firewall, as well as anti-malware defender. So group policy in Server 2016 enables us to standardize the working environment of clients and servers by setting policies. So we do this using the group policy management console, which we'll take a look at, and it allows us to set it for a site, a domain, an OU, or a local computer. And it allows us to basically say what that person logging into that computer can and cannot do with their domain joined computer and their user account. So if we open up the group policy management console, in this case called the editor, we can see on the left-hand side we've got computer configuration and user configuration. So this is a policy itself. This is after you've already opened the console and you've gone to edit a policy. So this is a policy. All the policies start out the same. They all have all of these different options and you have to choose which ones you want to change. So some are going to change the computer, some are going to change the user. So what that means is if you choose a computer policy, then it doesn't matter who logs into that computer, that policy is going to affect that computer. If you choose a user policy, it doesn't matter what computer they log into, that policy is going to affect them. So we've got specific password security options. This is one of the many policies in group policy. We've got the enforce password history, password age, all these different password things. One of the more popular ones is the complexity requirements. So we also can change the account lockout. How many times before somebody types the wrong password before they are locked out. And lockout parameters, the duration and the threshold, etc. So here is the specific parameter for the account lockout duration. And you can see that it's defined as set to 40 minutes. After 40 minutes, the account will become unlocked and the user can try the password again. So if it's a hacker, you're hoping that they just give up by then. Kerberos Security involves the use of tickets that are exchanged between the client and the server using Active Directory. So what this means is that if I have a client computer, I've logged in as an Active Directory user, then what's going to happen is Kerberos from Active Directory is going to issue me a ticket. And that ticket allows me to access resources on that server. And that ticket will be open until I log off, or unless some other parameter is set, like a timeout or something like that. Once I log off, my ticket is now expired, and if I want to get back in, I got to get a new ticket. That means I got to put in my username, my password. If there's any biometrics, I'll have to put in those as well. So this is what it looks like in group policy for the maximum lifetime for service ticket. And you've got the enforced logon restriction set, et cetera, et cetera. So these are all Kerberos policies. So an example of events that an organization can audit. Well, why would you even want to audit? Well, a lot of times I have clients that would come to me and say, hey, somebody's deleting or moving data and I'm afraid that our competitor is going to get that data. Can you stop it or tell me who's doing it? So I can turn on auditing and the auditing will tell me who is doing what, and you can audit all these different things. And so if I turn on all this auditing, it'll tell me who's deleting a file, adding, moving, whatever it is. However, this generates a tremendous amount of traffic, so you have to make sure you have the storage to manage this. So you want to check this every day so you can see how much is actually being used so you don't end up filling up your server. All right, so here's our audit account for event properties. You can see to define these settings, and you want the success and failure of logon events. Now this is the one auditing that is turned on by default. All the other ones you'd have to go in and manually set. Configuring user rights. User rights enable an account or group to perform predefined tasks. So the most basic task is being able to log into access a server. So you have two general categories. You've got privileges and logon rights. Some examples of privileges: add workstation to a domain, backup files and directories. So these are all things that you can add to a junior administrator's account without giving them full access to the domain. like the administrator would have. So you can go in and say, hey, you've just hired a new junior administrator, and you want them to be able to back up files and directories. So you give them the backup files and directories, right? And then they're able to go ahead and do that as part of their job. But we don't give them the right to shut down the system because we don't have that level of trust yet. So here is the configure user rights. This is another group policy and group policy option, user rights assignment on the left, and you see all the different rights that they can have on the right. There are many specialized security options divided into following categories. You can see all those categories there. And these specialized security options, once again, you give out sparingly to people that you want to be able to have access to them. So this is continue. There's additional ones there. And once again, here is on the left-hand side the security options in the group policy, and on the right-hand side what they can and cannot do. So there's a lot of different options. There are dozens of options if you scroll all the way down. Active Directory Rights Management Services. This is a server role that you can add to complement the client applications that can take advantage of rights management services safeguards. So this is all about protecting the server, making sure people don't have too many rights. Security rights developed by Microsoft to prevent security for documents, spreadsheets, email, etc. It works by implementing rights that manage who can read, modify, copy, save, print, forward, etc. General steps used in rights management security. A user creates a Word document. So let's just use that as an example. In the process of protecting the document with RMS, Word encrypts the document using an AES encryption key and an additional RSA key. So this thing is really encrypted well. The AD-RMS server issues an identity license to the client who can access the document. Client shows the AD-RMS server its license to access the document. So these certificates are exchanged. So the keys are exchanged using the certificates. So the access to the file is given to the user. And if they don't have these proper certificates, then they don't have access to it. Now all this kind of stuff happens in the background. So the user themselves don't really have to worry about it. All right, the snap-in allows you to set up security to govern account policies, local policies, event tracking, etc. So let's take a look at this snap-in. You've got the MMC running, and you've got the security templates. And from here you can create a new template to secure your data. You can customize settings used by clients. Offers lots of different advantages. You have enhanced security and provides a consistent working environment in a corporation or an environment. Publishing applications. You can publish applications through group policies. Doesn't work that well, but it does. If you can get lucky, and it's a Microsoft product, it works okay. Mostly this does better if you're using System Center Configuration Manager or something like that to push out the clients, or some third-party application. So it sets up software installation through a group policy, and it pushes that out to the client. So either they can install it if they choose, or it gets pushed out and installed automatically. So here is the software installation properties box. You can choose the package location. It only works with MSI files, not with executables, but MSI files are made up of executables. When adding the new package, you got the option to publish or assign. So publish basically just makes it available to them. They just have to choose it, and assign will actually do the installation, or you can choose the advanced option. Resultant set of policy. I really like this product. This is used to make implementation and troubleshooting of group policies much simpler for an administrator. You can query the policies that have already been set to see if there's any kind of conflict and if it does exactly what you want. So in the book, it does show you an example of how to use the resultant set of policy tool. Using the cipher command, we can encrypt folders and files and make them available to only people that should have access to it. An encrypted folder or file uses Microsoft's EFS, encrypting file system. And it uses a private encryption key as associated with the user account for the public key. You can set the encrypt attribute in a folder through working with that folder's or file's properties. So basically you just right-click on the folder, go to Properties, go to Advanced, and then you can check the box for EFS. Now, if you don't want to just encrypt a folder, you want to encrypt an entire hard drive, then you want to use Bitlocker. So Bitlocker is a role that you install, or a feature, I should say, that you install when you go to Server Manager, and it encrypts the entire hard drive. So that's perfect for laptops that leave the building a lot. And if they get lost, you don't have to notify all of your customers that you've lost it. Trusted Platform Module adds one additional piece to this you can use with Bitlocker if you want. That also encrypts it to a special little processor on your motherboard. Not all computers have it, but most laptops do. And so if the hard drive ever gets separated from the motherboard using this TPM chip, then there's no way to decrypt the drive unless you've backed up the keys. And of course, a hacker's not going to have access to backed up keys that are offline. When used to protect a hard drive, TPM verifies the computer which the hard drive is connected, has authority to access the drive. If the drive is stolen, it cannot be accessed by another computer. So you can't take that drive out and put it into another computer. It won't work. If a computer is not equipped with TPM, Bitlocker will still work. It just doesn't use the TPM. So it's not quite as secure, but it's still extremely secure. Network translation. This hides all the inside IP addresses from the outside world. So if you're on a 192.168.0 network and you all go out to the firewall, to the internet, you don't want people knowing your IP address. So network address translation basically hides, it's called hide NAT, hides your IP address from the rest of the world. So it only sees the public IP address your firewall came from and not your private address. Only one or a very small pool of public IP addresses are needed to make this work. Windows Firewall protects your server by blocking port traffic, TCP and UDP port traffic, which is traffic that basically are doorways into your network. So TCP IP is two different protocols. They are, you have the TCP side, which is the connection-oriented protocol, and you've got the UDP side, which is connectionless. So it's both TCP IP and UDP IP. So these two protocols have 65,000 doorways into your network. By default, most of them are closed. You can close all of them, open some of them, open all of them, whatever it is you want. But the Windows Firewall will give you that ability to open or close those ports. So you can create what's called exceptions to what's been blocked. And you can do IPv4 and IPv6. Windows Defender protects your server is using an anti-malware program. It protects you against viruses, spyware, and other threats. And again, it's not as good as many of the third-party products out there, but it's good enough if you don't have anything else. Scans for malware, has the option to run a manual scan. You know, this Defender started out as a anti-spyware program, but not anti-virus. It wasn't until a couple of generations after that that they decided to also protect against viruses as well. So it hasn't been around as long as some of the more mature products out there, which is why it's not quite as good. But it's better than nothing. Server 2016 has many important security features. We talked about group policy, audit policies, IPsec, security templates, resultant set of policy, BitLocker, and encryption. And we also talk about network address translation, firewall, and Defender. So a lot of different ways to protect your server here. And go ahead and take a look at your lab, and you'll see some of those that are covered in there. And we'll see you again in Module 8.